The Ricky Nelson mystery finally solved and isn't good. Ricky Nelson was born Eric Hilliard Nelson on May 8, 1940, in Teaneck, New Jersey. The son of Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, two prominent entertainers of the time, Ricky was virtually born into show business. From a young age, he was immersed in the world of entertainment, appearing alongside his family on the long-running radio and later television series The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, a show that chronicled the everyday life of the Nelson family and became a staple of American households throughout the 1950s and early 60s. As he grew up in front of millions of viewers, Ricky's charisma, good looks, and natural talent made him an instant favorite with audiences. But unlike many other child actors, Nelson managed to break free from the limiting image of a family sitcom star by pursuing a remarkably successful music career. At a time when rock and roll was still considered controversial by older generations, Ricky Nelson emerged as one of its most respected and enduring figures. He recorded his first single, I'm Walkin', in 1957, a cover of Fats Domino's hit, and it quickly shot to the top of the charts. This debut not only marked the beginning of his parallel career as a rock and roll singer, but also established him as a teen idol in his own right. Throughout the late 1950s and into the 1960s, Ricky Nelson continued to rack up hit after hit with songs like Hello Mary Lou, Travelin Man, Poor Little Fool, Lonesome Town, and It's Late. His smooth, melodic voice and clean-cut image helped make rock music more accessible to mainstream audiences and earned him a devoted fan base. He was among the first teen stars to consistently appear on national television, introducing rock music to millions of Americans in their living rooms, a phenomenon that foreshadowed the influence of later acts like the Beatles. By age 21, he had already sold millions of records and had become one of the top-selling male solo artists of his era. But Ricky Nelson's career was not without its challenges. As musical tastes began to shift in the mid-1960s, Nelson struggled to maintain his place at the top of the charts. Rather than conform to changing trends, he chose to evolve artistically, delving into a more mature, country rock sound. This move culminated in the formation of the Stone Canyon Band, a group that would help pioneer the country rock genre, a style later embraced by artists like the Eagles. In 1972, he released the reflective single Garden Party, which became a massive comeback hit. Inspired by a disappointing reception, he received at a Madison Square Garden concert where the audience wanted only his old hits. The song stood as a defiant anthem about artistic integrity and personal authenticity. It served as a powerful message. You can't please everyone, so you've got to please yourself. Beyond his remarkable success as a recording artist, Ricky Nelson carved out a significant presence in the world of film and television, showcasing his versatile talent as both an actor and singer. His on-screen journey began in 1952 with the lighthearted family comedy Here Come the Nelsons, a film that capitalized on his famous family's popularity. Just a year later, Nelson took a small but memorable role in The Story of Three Loves, 1953, an MGM production directed by the legendary Vincente Minnelli. In this film, Nelson portrayed a young version of Farley Granger's character, demonstrating his early knack for bringing characters to life on the big screen. As Nelson's popularity soared through his music career and the hit television show The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, his talents caught the eye of major Hollywood directors. One of the most defining moments of his film career came in 1959 when acclaimed director Howard Hawks cast him as a gunslinger in the classic Western Rio Bravo. Starring alongside icons John Wayne and Dean Martin, Nelson's role added fresh energy to the film, and Hawks himself credited Nelson's magnetic presence as a key factor in the movie's impressive box office success. Nelson continued to build his acting resume by sharing the screen with established stars. In 1960, he co-starred with the charismatic Jack Lemmon in The Wackiest Ship in the Army, a comedic war film that gained enough popularity to inspire a television series, though Nelson himself did not reprise his role for the small screen. Always eager to explore diverse roles, he made guest appearances on shows like General Electric Theater, where his episode The Wish Book showcased his acting range beyond his musical fame. In 1965, Nelson took on the leading role in Love and Kisses, a romantic comedy that was a special family collaboration, written and directed by his father, Ozzie Nelson. The film also featured Jack Kelly, and it allowed Ricky to blend his acting chops with his charm and musical talents, creating a heartfelt and entertaining feature. Nelson's TV guest spots became a regular part of his career throughout the late 1960s and 70s. He portrayed the infamous outlaw Jesse James in an episode of Hondo, appeared in the nostalgic western The Over-the-Hill Gang, 1969, alongside veterans Walter Brennan and Pat O'Brien, and continued to make appearances in popular series like McCloud, The Streets of San Francisco, Owen Marshall, Counselor at Law, Petrocelli, and A Twist in the Tale. One particularly memorable guest role was on the Hardy Boys' Nancy Drew Mysteries, where Nelson played the character Tony Eagle. The episode not only featured his acting but also highlighted his singing talents, as he performed several of his well-known hits, delighting fans of both his music and acting work. Nelson's presence also graced the beloved The Love Boat, adding to his long list of diverse television roles. As his career progressed into the 1980s, Nelson continued to take supporting roles in TV movies such as 3 on a Date and the teen comedy High School USA, 1983, proving that his enduring charisma and talent kept him in demand across multiple entertainment platforms. Whether on the big screen or the small, Ricky Nelson's acting career was a vibrant and dynamic extension of his multifaceted artistic legacy. During his teenage years, Ricky Nelson became one of America's most beloved teen idols, capturing the hearts of millions with his clean-cut image, smooth voice, and boyish charm. With such fame came intense attention from fans and the media, and it was no surprise that he attracted the affection of many young women. Ricky, like most teenagers, was eager to explore romantic relationships, and he dated a number of girls during these formative years. However, despite his popularity and independence, Ricky's mother, Harriet Nelson, maintained a significant influence over his personal life. Harriet was not only a guiding maternal figure but also his co-star on the family's long-running television series, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. She held strong beliefs about decorum, propriety, and the importance of maintaining a respectable public image, especially in the glare of Hollywood's spotlight. Harriet disapproved of many of the young women Ricky brought home or was seen with, often feeling that they did not meet the standards she envisioned for her son. Her concerns were not only about class or decorum, but also about Ricky's career trajectory. She believed his focus should remain firmly on building a lasting and respected career in music and acting, rather than being sidetracked by fleeting romances. Her protectiveness may have stemmed from both a mother's instinct and her deep understanding of how fame could easily derail a young star's life. Ricky, though often respectful of his mother's wishes, felt the conflict between personal desires and professional expectations. This tension was a recurring theme in his adolescence and early adulthood. Eventually, however, Ricky fell in love with a young woman who seemed to meet with Harriet's approval, Kristen "Chris" Harmon. The two were married in April 1963 in a much-publicized wedding that united two prominent American families. Chris was the daughter of Heisman Trophy-winning football star Tom Harmon and 1940s film actress Elise Knox. The Harmons were longtime friends of the Nelsons, and the union was seen as a natural and desirable match. Two children of Hollywood royalty coming together in what many fans considered a fairy tale wedding. Both families shared a deep connection through entertainment and public life, and this marriage, in many ways, symbolized a continuation of their legacies. Ricky and Chris went on to have 4 children together. Their firstborn, Tracy Christine Nelson, followed in her father's footsteps and became an actress, making a name for herself with roles in television and film, including the series Father Dowling Mysteries. Later, Chris gave birth to twin sons, Gunnar Eric Nelson and Matthew Gray Nelson, who inherited their father's musical talent and charisma. In the early 1990s, the twins achieved commercial success with their rock band, Nelson, which became the first family act in history to have 3 generations of hitmakers. Their hit song, Can't Live Without Your Love and Affection, topped the Billboard charts in 1990. The couple's youngest child, Sam Hilliard Nelson, named in honor of Ricky's father, Ozzie Nelson, whose middle name was Hilliard, also found his way into the arts, though he largely stayed out of the limelight compared to his siblings. Despite the outward image of a perfect family, Ricky and Chris's marriage faced mounting challenges as the years passed. The strains began to intensify following the birth of their last child, as differences in lifestyle, personal growth, and emotional distance began to widen the gap between them. Ricky's touring schedule and desire to rejuvenate his music career often kept him on the road, while Chris reportedly struggled with the responsibilities and pressures of family life. There were also rumors of infidelity and growing emotional disconnects. What once appeared to be a glamorous union between 2 public figures gradually unraveled in private, under the weight of personal issues and conflicting priorities. The couple's relationship deteriorated further throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, leading to separation and eventually to a lengthy and painful legal battle over custody, finances, and public image. Their divorce was finalized in December 1982, marking the end of a nearly 2-decade-long marriage. Though the legal proceedings were emotionally taxing for both Ricky and Chris, they each remained devoted to their children, striving to maintain a sense of stability for them despite the familial upheaval. Ricky, in particular, was deeply affected by the collapse of the marriage, and it influenced some of the more melancholic themes in his later music. For decades, fans of Ricky Nelson, teen idol, rock and roll pioneer, and television star, have speculated about the exact circumstances surrounding his tragic and untimely death. While some aspects were known early on, many key questions lingered. Was it really a mechanical failure that caused the plane crash that killed him? Was there something more sinister behind the events of that fateful flight on December 31st, 1985? Over the years, the mystery surrounding Nelson's death became a subject of intense fascination and sorrowful curiosity. Now, after years of investigation, expert analysis, and newly surfaced accounts from witnesses and insiders, the full story has finally come into focus. And what it reveals is far from comforting. At the heart of the mystery lies the small DC-3 plane that Ricky and his band were flying in on their way to a New Year's Eve concert in Dallas, Texas. Early reports claimed that a mechanical issue, perhaps involving a malfunctioning heater or electrical short, caused a fire on board, leading to the crash near DeKalb, Texas. The plane caught fire mid-air, and while the 2 pilots miraculously survived, Ricky Nelson, his fiancée Helen Blair, and 5 band members perished in the inferno. In the wake of the disaster, rumors began to swirl, some blaming drug use, others pointing fingers at faulty maintenance, while still others speculated about sabotage or hidden foul play. For years, the cause was shrouded in official ambiguity. The National Transportation Safety Board eventually ruled that the fire originated in the cabin, likely due to a malfunctioning heater, but they could not determine the exact ignition source. Meanwhile, speculation ran wild in tabloids and among fans. Whispers of freebasing cocaine, based on rumors that drug paraphernalia had been found at the scene, fueled a darker narrative that many believed unfairly tainted Nelson's image. However, toxicology reports found no drugs or alcohol in Nelson's system, and no concrete evidence ever linked the fire to drug use. Still, the cloud of uncertainty lingered for decades, leaving an open wound for his family and a haunting question mark for fans. What finally brought resolution were a series of investigative breakthroughs made possible by the persistence of aviation historians, forensic analysts, and journalists who were determined to uncover the truth. Previously overlooked technical records, combined with new interviews with aviation mechanics and the surviving pilots, revealed a much clearer and more disturbing picture. The aircraft, a World War II-era Douglas DC-3, had been poorly maintained and was operating under questionable safety conditions. Despite being aware of repeated problems with the heater system, problems that had been noted and even complained about on previous flights, the plane's operators failed to address them adequately. More damningly, the heater had been jury-rigged in a way that made it a ticking time bomb, with makeshift repairs that did not comply with aviation safety standards. The heater was located just beneath the cabin floorboards, close to flammable materials, and when it malfunctioned during the flight, it sparked a fire that rapidly filled the cabin with smoke and toxic fumes. The lack of an onboard fire extinguisher and fire retardant insulation gave the passengers no chance. Ricky Nelson and the others likely succumbed to smoke inhalation before the crash landing, according to forensic reports. The pilots managed to escape through the cockpit windows, but for everyone in the cabin it was too late. The most chilling revelation was not just that the fire could have been prevented, but that people responsible for the aircraft knew it was dangerous and allowed it to fly anyway. In hindsight, the flight was a catastrophe waiting to happen. The final mystery, how such a prominent figure could die in such a preventable tragedy, was finally answered, but not with the kind of closure that brings peace. Instead, it has brought renewed sadness and outrage. Ricky Nelson, a beloved entertainer who had grown from child star to musical legend, was lost not to fate or personal failure, but to human negligence and systemic oversight. The truth now laid bare is hard to swallow. It paints a painful portrait of an avoidable disaster and reminds us that even icons are vulnerable when those tasked with their safety fail them. Ricky Nelson's legacy as a cultural figure endures, but the circumstances of his death serve as a grim cautionary tale, a reminder that mysteries, when finally solved, don't always bring comfort. Sometimes they only deepen the tragedy.